Hello everyone, this is Nikka Calimag and I am going to discuss about some issues related to instructional planning. So we have known already that instructional planning is a process of the teacher using appropriate curricula, instructional strategies, resources, and data during the planning process to address the diverse needs of the students. So this time, let's talk about some issues related to instructional planning. So when we say issues, we are talking about problems, difficulty of the situation, or simply difficulties. So it says here, the teacher plans instruction in order to realize the objectives set by him or her. Various considerations underline the process of planning that he or she uses for this purpose. So planning is really important because whenever you make plan, you know what you want to achieve, and at the same time, it becomes clear what the future might hold and what your goals are. So your objectives makes your decision making more efficient and more something to the point. So we have main considerations here in instructional planning. One is what is going to be taught, or this refers to the subject matter. And another one is who is going to be taught, or the receiver of the lesson. But we'll also consider how will you teach and how you will know if the students understood the lesson. The basic purpose behind teaching is to match the subject matter with the abilities of the students to enable them to realize the learning outcomes. A large number of teaching strategies are available to the teacher for achieving the desired objectives. Yes, in fact, there are lots of teaching strategies that we can apply inside the classroom, like direct instruction, inquiry-based, implementing technologies, comparative learning, and the like. So since instructional planning is very important, a teacher therefore has to consider all these issues while planning his teaching. The main issues that need to be considered are, so first we have the subject matter for teaching, methods to be used during teaching, instructional materials, levels of instruction, organization of learning, and students' needs and interests, attention spans, ability to work together in groups, prior knowledge and learning experiences, special needs or accommodations and learning preferences. So let us all discuss this in detail. So first, let us have the subject matter for teaching, or simply the subject matter. So when we say subject matter, we are pertaining to what is to be taught. So it says here, decisions regarding the subject matter for teaching are taken by curriculum planners at different levels. These include boards of school education, the school system, and various bodies associated with the education system. Or we call this national level, state level, school system level, building level, teacher team level, and these two which is most of us here do, the individual teacher level or the classroom level with cooperative planning between students and teachers. These agencies merely decide the broad outlines of the curriculum. The operational decisions about which parts of the curriculum are to be stressed more and which ones are to be stressed least are taken by the teacher during the course of teaching. So, for example, the teacher may like to leave many topics to the students for self-study. Example of this is in science and technology. Some of the programs in television is all about science or related in science. So we expect that these are well known to the students. So this means that the teacher no longer needs to teach them in class. Another example, in teaching basketball in physical education, we can just leave modules regarding the parts of the court, hand signals of the referee including their meaning, rules in playing basketball for self-study. And we will give more emphasis or stress by giving more time during the acquisition of the said rules and signals in playing basketball. So of course, the students need our assistance this time, and this is an important part of the learning process. Some topics that are difficult to grasp, even after a close study of the text by the students, the teacher must allot more time to explain and discuss this to his or her learners. So these are some issues of instructional planning, particularly in subject matter for teaching. Now let us move on to the next one that we have to consider, the teaching method. So when we say teaching method, what comes to our mind are the direct teaching, the flipped classroom, the inquiry-based learning, the expeditionary learning, the game-based learning, and the like. So there are lots of teaching methods that we can apply inside the class. Okay, so the presentation of content is another issue linked with planning of instruction. A teacher cannot always rely on his favorite method of lecturing supported with blackboard work, of course. So the goal before the teacher is to be bringing about desired changes in students' behavior. This goal cannot be accomplished by trying out all methods of teaching for all types of content. The teacher has to select the most appropriate method for teaching a particular subject matter. So for example, in teaching physical education, what do you think is more effective method in teaching basketball, for example? Is it the direct instruction or just merely saying the rules and regulations in playing basketball, or just doing the lecture on hand signals, or through applying kinesthetic learning? So of course, students will mostly enjoy learning using the kinesthetic learning method or through applying what they have learned. So it is really enjoyable for our students if that is through acquisition of what they have learned. So how about in learning history? Which do you think is more effective? Is it the direct learning or the expeditionary learning? Like going to museums or having trips? Of course, students will also enjoy it through expeditionary learning. But because of this pandemic, it is very hard for us to execute this one. But we can still possibly do expeditionary learning or apply this expeditionary learning in our class through sending our students videos which contains expedition or trips, especially when we are teaching history. At least we can still tour them or show them the places, the countries, or the historical places. The subject matter in each discipline consists of facts, concepts, rules, and generalization. So when we say facts, these are based on observation of events that have either occurred in the past or exist in the present. For example, a triangle is a plane figure with 3 straight sides and 3 angles. The sun rises in the east. So these are observations. Facts are observations. So therefore, for teaching facts, the teacher should use an instructional procedure that allows learners to make direct observations. So after facts, we also have concepts. So when we say concepts, this is the general idea of something. For example, the concept animal. Cat, dog, tiger, and etc. are concepts which come under the broad concept of animal. Concept attainment involves attending to those attributes that are absolutely essential to the meaning and disregarding those attributes which are not absolutely essential to the meaning. It also involves learning to discriminate between what belongs to a concept and what does not. So therefore, again, while planning for teaching of instruction for concept, the teacher should employ such methods wherein the students or learners' attention is drawn to similarities, differences, and placing similar objects in the same category. So we can do this through using Venn diagram, which distinguishes differences and similarities of objects. And we also have teaching the rules and generalizations. So when we say rules and generalizations, these are statements that link two or more concepts. They are predictive in nature and contain more than one element. For example, every action has its opposite reaction is a principle in science. So here we can have an explanation considering the motion of a car. So a car is equipped with wheels that spin. As the wheels spin, they grip the roads and push the roads backwards. Since forces result from mutual interactions, the road must be also pushing the wheels forward. So the direction of the force of the road is backward, which is opposite the direction of the force on the wheels. So here, in teaching rules and generalization, we must let our students collect data or observe and find the relationship between two or more concepts. So therefore, while planning for teaching of rules and generalizations, the teacher should employ such methods which enable students to use activities required for the purpose. So it depends on the teacher to select appropriate teaching methods on the basis of questions such as, first, which are the most important facts, and of these, which ones seem most accurate and relevant? Next, which concepts are familiar to the students and which ones need to be explained to enable the students to understand the content? Third, how do students learn to infer and predict through performing generalizations? And lastly, how can the students be equipped to test the reliability of the data they gathered? So these are the questions that leads to generalizing or teaching the students about rules and generalizations. So the third issue related to instructional planning are the problems associated with the use of instructional materials. So when you say instructional materials, these are the aids that we use during the process of teaching and learning or the teaching and learning process. So there are problems associated with the use of instructional materials. First one is the teacher's professional knowledge and technical know-how. Teachers' knowledge have a great impact on the effective application of teaching aids or instructional materials. This is because the teacher uses need to understand the sequential presentation of the instructional gadgets so as to suit the interest of the learners and its appropriateness with the instructional tasks. So, especially in this challenging time, not only teachers but also students have difficulty in using the instructional materials sent by their teachers. So, this is really a challenge in both sides of teacher and students. Next, we also have the environmental factors. So, the part of the application of teaching aids or instructional materials process is the target population for whom the materials are to be used and the setting or vicinity where the learning should take place. So, this is also an issue in instructional planning, because what if the materials must be used outside and eventually it rained? So how can you utilize it properly? So these are really some issues in instructional materials. So next we also have the time constraints. So time is also a serious problem or factor that delayed the effective use of instructional materials in effective instructional delivery in the class. Because in most cases, the time that is allotted for the subject on the timetable might not have been enough for the teachers to present his contents with effective use of materials which will affect the wholesome delivery of the content. For example, in doing experiments in science, sometimes the time allotted in doing the experiment is not long enough to finish the said experiment. So we might be repeating that on some other time to finish the observation. Next, we also have the financial constraints. So this factor seems to be the handicap why most educational institutions are unable to acquire relevant teaching equipments and materials. In line with this, students and teachers will lack on the opportunity to learn and use new techniques in the field. So as a teacher, it is very fulfilling if we are able to provide our students the materials and equipments that they can use. But how about if the institutions are unable to provide us the said equipment? So this is also an issue regarding the instructional material. Because of lack of funds, we cannot import and use instructional materials that can make learning easier and faster. Poor maintenance culture. So if the materials are available for the effective instructional delivery are poorly manhandled by both the teachers and some school authority or even the students, then it will easily be destroyed. So this is also an issue in the instructional planning. And last but not the least, we have the unavailability of the teaching aids. So another press issue about teaching aids or instructional materials for use is that the materials are grossly lacking in the schools. So there are scarcity of both printed and audiovisual materials in most of this instructional. Neither printed nor audiovisual materials are available. But actually today, because of this pandemic, we cannot really utilize the instructional materials available in our schools. That is why some of the students do improvisation of the instructional materials available at their homes. Just like some nurse students, they are using theirs for operation. They are using stuffed toys for doing the operation. So this is really challenging today. So these are the issues or problems regarding the instructional material. And the other issues related to instructional planning will be discussed by the next reporter. So that's all, and thank you.